Got my laptop on, and I feel alright. I got a few joints rolled, and my munchies made. Got my headphones on, and I close the door, don't disturb me. It's time to stand up tall and say some things about the shitty world we're living in with the boys at Raconteurs News. C'est Raconteurs, c'est Raconteurs, c'est Raconteurs News, Raconteurs News, Raconteurs News, Raconteurs News, Raconteurs News. Oh yeah.
Good evening and welcome to Raconteurs News. This Tuesday evening we are broadcasting live on Spreaker.com. Do a search for us on Spreaker and Raconteurs News, and also on raconteursnews.com, and I've just popped on the Facebook Live as well if anybody's interested in looking at my ugly mug while I sit here and talk nonsense for the evening. I hope you've had a great day. I really do. Honestly, you know, these people that will tell you that they hope you've had a good day, they don't really mean it, but I hope you have had a great day. And thanks for listening to us, and thanks for the exceptional comments that I've had recently regarding my health, and people have been getting in touch with me and saying, you know, wishing me all the best and all that. So anybody that's well, in fact, all of you that's done that, then I really, really do appreciate it. And sometimes I'm terribly slow at replying to people, but I will reply as to every single person, so thank you very much for that as well. It is Tuesday night, and a big thank you to Super Leeds, who's been busily chatting on the website on raconteursnews.com. There's a chat room in there, and he's he's been posting some good stuff in there. Not very nice things about Sheffield Wednesday, but you know, if he's gonna, we might as well lose. He's put a bet on Sheffield Wednesday to lose tonight. As everybody knows, I'm a season ticket holder at Sheffield Wednesday. We're playing tonight at home. I can't be asked to go and sit down there. It's absolute dog shit that I've been watching, so I'm not bothering with it. I couldn't even give my tickets away, so that just shows you what sort of what sort of football we're playing at the moment. So yeah, a big one tonight. We're playing Derby, and I know that. I know that Leeds on Saturday, they had a defeat against our big rivals, Sheffield United, the Blavagers, as we call them. They're called Blavagers because it's sort of a cross between Blades and Savages. So that's what they are. They're the Blavagers. So they'll beat Leeds on Saturday. I think it was Saturday tea time, weren't it? So, but... well, we and anyway, let's get on with this evening. Thank you for joining us. This evening, tonight, it is the 13th of February. It's the day before Valentine's Day, so my postman's probably going to have a bad back tomorrow, but we've got a guest on, and we've a guest we've had on a couple of times before, and I really enjoyed speaking with him about his books previously. He's the author of a couple of books called Your Thoughts Are Not Your Own. That's volume 1 and 2. That cover different things, and also recently we had him on in September to talk about his new book, which is on the Charles Manson case, which is called Now Is the Only Thing That's Real. Along that lines, I'm pretty certain. I hope I've got that right. But anyway, thank you for joining us this evening. How are you doing, Neil Sanders?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you, man? Thank you for having me on.
Brilliant. So,
sorry, who sings your intro?
That's it's a friend of mine. It's my best friend from school. He's called Heath.
He's good. He's really good.
Heath Dweft, he's called. If you can find him on YouTube. We do play a lot of his songs. He's an original singer songwriter, so we do play a lot of his songs because that means that we don't get copyrighted and that sort of stuff on YouTube. But also because they're great songs, he's done a few covers. I'll send you a link to him later on. But I know you're into your music as well, aren't you? How's your band thing going?
Yeah, it's ticking along. We're called Murder Sleep, if people want to check us out. It's a very acquired taste, so, you've been warned.
Murder Sleep?
Yes, yeah.
Right,
yeah.
Okay. A very evocative title.
Yeah, it's all just horrible punk stuff. It's, there's nothing positive about it. It's great.
Brilliant. Well, I've got you on because I wanted to talk about different the psychological elements of what's going on at the moment. We did speak earlier on, didn't we, about transgender, and you made a point that you said that there wasn't a transgender issue being promoted. It wasn't being pushed, for me that sort of it went against everything that I've sort of come to believe in the last week. And I'm really I'm really open to being, to being told that I'm wrong. So how do you feel that's? Do you feel that it's not actually an issue, or do you think that it's being promoted, or do you think that people that are in that situation are being manipulated?
What's your worst fear about transgenderism?
I don't have any fear of it at all. I don't.
What's the concept of this agenda? That basically we're going to convince people to cut their own cocks off, and then the human race will die out through lack of procreation. Is that because that's, as far as I can see, is what it is, or the breakup of the family unit, which again I don't really think that's true. I just don't think it's an issue. I just really don't think it's an issue. I don't think.
So if it's not an issue, Neil, why is it getting so much publicity on the mainstream media?
Well, because it's emerging into society, isn't it? It's not a new concept, but the technology is there whereby basically the medical procedures are available to more people, and it's becoming more talked about in the same way that basically homosexuality was talked about a few years ago. It's just a type of person. I personally have the opinion of it's none of my business what you do with your genitals, who you sleep with, what your preference is. And I just don't care, really, to be quite honest. And I think there's a lot of confusion about the difference between sex, sexuality, and gender. Sex, when we're talking about biological functioning, is basically it's your body. That's your genitalia. What you're born with, whatever, that's your sex, that's your biological sex. Your gender is a societal construct. It's the concept of how masculine or feminine we deem somebody to be. And if you think there's only two genders, are you really telling me that Boy George and Jeff Capes have got the exact same level of masculinity? Gender is a sliding scale of masculinity. And what denotes masculinity anyway? Does buggering a child denote masculinity? Because it bloody well did in Sparta. And it bloody well did in Greece, right, okay? And you weren't a man until you'd buggered a few children. Okay, that's a societal construct, okay? That's not what we look at it now. Is it manly to cry at films, to be proud of your emotions? Or is it manly to be stoic?
Yeah, but these mannerisms are all things that are psychological rather than physical, aren't they? If I know when you say that is Boy George just as much masculine as Jeff Capes, then yeah, I would say yes, he is, because he's a male, and that's probably a one way to
the term, because masculinity, because gender is, as I say, it's not about physicality, it's about how society understands denotions of what is considered masculine or feminine. A few years ago, you'd had the shit kicked out of you for wearing a pink shirt because that's not masculine. Okay, it is now. It's a construct. It's a societal construct. Things that are considered masculine in France and Italy, like kissing people on the cheek, is not considered masculine in England. Okay, and this is where the confusion comes right down. Sex is your biological functioning. Sexuality is who you fancy and who you want to sleep with. And gender is a sliding scale of what we denote to be societally masculine or feminine. And frankly, it doesn't matter. I really don't think it matters. Like the concept ties into the idea that being feminine is somehow bad, or being masculine is somehow good, or as I said, that these are fixed positions that we can on about. Now, if we're talking about stupid fucking parents, like giving their children drugs when they're really young because they want to be that person that's got a problem, or wants to be that interesting person, or wants to be that person that's talked about, then yeah, of course that is. But there's going to be stupid parents all over the place. Like it'll be like anything that is suddenly coming forefront into the mainstream. It'll be heavily hammered too much by those who are trying to promote it and normalize it. And it'll be utilized by idiots to make them seem clever and different. And of course that will happen. But that happens with everything. I really just don't see what the idea is behind this concept of a transgender agenda. And I just think I don't think everybody that's concerned about it is it, but I think the fundamental root of where this concept started is very, very similar to the gay agenda. And I would put money on it that it started from the John Birch Foundation, which is a heavily right-wing Christian organisation, and it boils down to the concept of Leviticus or whatever bollocks it is that says that homosexuality is a sin. And it's like, really, it also says that shellfish is a sin, and I've never seen you kick a cockle vendor to death. So, you know, I think it basically is, I think in a lot of cases, it acts as a justification for people's inherent prejudices or fears. Personally, I don't really understand what the concept is behind this idea of an agenda. I get the idea of sexualizing children younger and younger, and I get the idea that people might be uncomfortable with it. But how many transgender people do you know, man?
Me, I know none. Zero, none whatsoever. But do you know what I do come across? I have come across them, transgender people, and for me, there is. I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem at all. I have got no problem. If somebody thinks that there's something else, I might have my opinion of the reason why they think there's something else. But I don't have an opinion of those people. So what I try to do is what I do is that I judge everybody the way that I would hope that somebody would judge me. You know, the first time they met them.
I've personally known. Actually, I know of a few more actually, but like I've personally interacted on a daily basis with two in my life. And before I had to go and sit with them at work, I was like, oh, God, this is going to be weird. This is going to be freaky. Oh, my God, I don't know how to act with this. Like anybody would, because it's new and different. And you don't know what's going to happen. And you think other people are going to laugh at you, right? So, and with both of these people, within seconds, I went, oh, I get it. You're a woman. There's just something about, like, I was talking to them and it literally just like, oh, I get it. You're a woman. If we're honest, I don't think you look like a woman. You look like a transgender person. But I get it. You're a woman. Now, the argument that is always thrown at me is, oh, would you want your kids to be transgender then? It's like, no, of course not. But I don't think anybody wants to be transgender. I think you've grossly misunderstood the point. Are there going to be people that do it for attention? Fuck yes, of course there are. There's idiots everywhere. In the same way that people used to cut themselves when that was mainstream because of Marilyn Manson for attention. There's going to be some people that swear blind that they're transgender. And there's going to be some people that even that doesn't make them happy and that they're just searching for something. But you know what? There's going to be some people that it really, really helps. And so on the few instances that I've ever encountered, it was like, I get it. That was the right decision for you. Of course, nobody wants to be transgender, to go back to my point. I think what they want to be is something that they can't be. So this gives them an opportunity to perhaps get a bit of happiness out of life. And I don't really begrudge people that.
No, and I don't either. Listen, that's not my.
I'm not suggesting you
That's
do,
not my
mate.
point. I'm not. My argument isn't at the people that are transgender for whatever whatever the reasoning that they are transgender or they. My argument isn't that. My argument is that as a society, we seem to shed a lot more light on things like that. Which, let's face it, if you start teaching that to kids, and you're telling kids that they can be whatever gender that they want, that's.
I don't think they're teaching kids that they can be any gender that they want. I think they're saying that basically it's okay to look at your feelings and you don't have to stick to rigid principles if it's making you unhappy. I don't think anybody's telling kids, why don't you go out and pretend to be a girl for a week and see if it's fun? Like, and even if they did, so what? Seriously, so what? I don't see the problem, really. Like, other than people's, I don't quite like it. I don't think, I tell you two things, right? Could I force you to be gay? Could I force you to go in the kitchen and cut your balls off? No, I bloody couldn't. So why do you think anybody else is that naive that they could be?
Listen. I completely understand. I get your argument. I do get your argument. I've got no problem at all with anybody that's transgender. Anybody that thinks that. Anybody that thinks that they're in the wrong body. What I'm talking about is the accessibility of it, and the discussion and the lowering of what do we stop? What do we start talking to as kids about?
I think the reason that it's become prevalent is because of people within the mainstream. You've had people in the past like Keith Tamina Caputo from Life of Agony. That was a long time ago now, actually. And then you had obviously the Wachowski brothers, and the most prevalent was Bruce to Caitlyn Jenner. So that's why, because it's the hot new topic. Basically, that's really why it's being pushed. But I don't see that it's necessarily a bad thing that it is being pushed, really, in that sense. So, because I think there's a lot of panic about it. I mean, if you can tell me specific things that you've seen that you don't think are cool. I mean, as I say, I could point out a dozen.
Listen, it's not that I don't think it's cool.
I know of a couple. I do know of a couple that swear blind their kids like transgender, and he's not. They just like dressing him up because then they can fucking talk about it and seem like interesting people down the pub. Right, okay, and it turns it into their tragedy. I get it. I get that that's going to happen in some cases. But also, I think I don't think people realise quite how difficult it is to get the operation. And again, I think we're mixing things up. Are we talking about the sort of like the point of people physically changing, that we're worried that children are going to be encouraged to physically change their sexuality, or we're worried that kids are going to wear makeup? Like lads are going to wear makeup, or girls are going to play football. I mean, nobody complains about that. Is it bad that girls play football, which is traditionally a masculine thing? That was unthinkable in the 70s.
Yeah. There's a big difference between women playing football and the transgender issue that seems to have it seems to have embedded itself in the consciousness, the social consciousness of people, and for me, it should be a peripheral. It should be something peripheral, something that perhaps if it's involved in somebody's life, or they know somebody of that, then that's when it should be involved in your life, not being taught to your children and not being. Look, kids, it's confusing enough growing up, and they're given so much. Look, I've got a 20-year-old daughter. Who I was I've been really, really close to all through her life. And even though me and her mum split up, and I used to take her away on holidays and do things like that. Well, she's grown up, and now she's 20 years old. And, when I'm speaking to her, she's fallen out with me 3 times since December.
Yeah.
on three different occasions because I've raised my voice at her. Now, all I'm saying is that these behaviours and these are being programmed and installed in our kids, and I don't see the problem with teaching kids about transgender. I just don't see why it has to happen. Why cannot they then say
facets of real life?
But there's loads of facets of real life that we don't teach kids in school. We don't promote the fact that you know.
Well, okay, Jason, because I'm not familiar with this mass indoctrination thing that's actually going on in school. Like, if you can give me an example of what they've told these children and why that is a bad thing.
What they're doing is the gender fluidity, as it's called, and so kids can call themselves whatever they want. I mean, it's confusing for kids. I mean, come on, kids are going to be, you know what kids are like, they're going to be doing it just simply because they don't want to feel left out. You know, if their mate decides that they're going to be a V or a chi or a whatever they call themselves, then it just, like, kids don't want to be left out of anything, so they want to be part of it. And so if it's there, they want to be part of it, and therefore it's eventually it's causing confusion. So it's damaging in a way.
Well, what's going to be the result of this confusion?
Well, they're going to be confused, aren't they?
Right. About what? About whether
they're going to start thinking about the sexuality. They start thinking about the gender.
Why? Well, of course they're going to start thinking about the sexuality. They're going to start thinking about the sexuality anyway. But I just don't think that it's possible to culturally turn a person gay or convince them that they want.
I'm not talking about that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about this agenda to turn people gay. I don't. That's really what. All I'm saying is, right, there should be an allowance for children to develop naturally.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And not have these influences placed upon them, especially when they're developing. Well, I mean, children, when they're growing up, the brains are developing all the time.
What if they're 7 years old and they're obviously a woman, but they're trapped in a boy's body? Do they have to wait until they're an adult? Do they have to go through that pain before they even understand that that's an option?
Well, yeah, of course they should.
Why? Why would they have to?
They can't, when they're a child,
isn't that the same as basically saying, like, a few years ago, if you're gay, keep your fucking mouth shut?
No, listen, that's not what I'm saying. It's not what. Look,
I don't understand what it's like opening this concept.
You can say, look, if you're a child and you're a boy and you're convinced you're in a girl's body, right?
Yeah.
Let's face it, there's only you that actually knows, and if you're convinced that you're in a girl's body, then what would happen then is you'd have some counselling, some therapy, talking to somebody, not to talk you out of it, but just to make sure that what you were doing and what you were saying was actually what was going on in your mind and what you really, really wanted. And these safeguards in place, it seems it's so easy these days to just be able to get through and become accepted.
Well, how's that any different from, like, when I was at school, where basically you had to be the man's man, macho. Like, there's always an idea that you've got to live towards. It's just that basically now we're examining that perhaps, maybe there's more different options for you. I just don't think, like, just by suggesting to kids that you do know there's a sliding scale of genders and some people are going to be more feminine, some people are going to be more masculine. I don't see a problem with that. I don't, when they do start doing lessons where basically they dress kids up and make them, live as a woman for, lads live as a woman for a week, or make girls live as a man for a week or stuff like that, and mark them on it and try and indoctrinate them forcefully, then that's fine. Just talking about something that is a facet of life, I don't quite understand what the problem is. Like, of course it's going to confuse kids. You know what confuses kids? Life. Everything about life is confusing. So isn't it better to talk about things? Like, again, it really depends what, I am of the opinion that kids are smart enough to realise after a while, I don't want to do this. Like, you could tell kids, okay, that, like, you need to do this and you have to do that. kids don't always like what's popular or what, like, you know, not everyone's into Power Rangers, not everyone's into punk rock, not everyone's into football. Just because they tell you at school that this is a thing. When we were at school, they were telling people that homosexuality is a thing. Like, and you know what? Quite a few girls went out and tried it, and I'm sure some guys went out and tried it. And then the ones that weren't gay basically figured out pretty quickly that they won't want to do that, and it was a phase. I'm sure there were lads that when I was at school that were wearing makeup. In fact, I know there was, because Marilyn Manson was a thing. And they were messing with gender roles. They were messing with gender roles in the 1980s when you were dressing up as New Romantics or LA hair metal. And it's just I don't really see what the problem is. I get the confusion aspect. I get the fact that some people are going to jump on it. I get that there's going to be idiot parents and stuff like that. But it very much depends on how this is presented to children. And if it's presented that basically, you know, it is not normal for you not to be fluid or whatever, or something like that, you know, if it's aggressively reverse psychology, then yeah. But I don't know, because I haven't seen the lesson plans. And all that I've seen really is quite reactionary stuff in my own personal thing. If somebody's seen something that I have missed, then please, you know, show me. Okay, and I'm not saying that, yeah, I get it. I understand it. You don't want your kids to be bombarded with ideas that you feel might be detrimental to them in an already confusing society. But the flip side of that argument is, what if these kids are already confused because basically they feel that they have to stick to the rigid concept that was already prevalent? You know, this is the point. Again, like, it's a glib idea, but 5-10 years ago, a child couldn't wear a pink shirt because they would be called a puff. Okay? That's just the way it is. Now they can. And I know that sounds really, really silly and glib, but isn't that a good thing?
Well, I've got to tell you, Neil, when I was, so this must be 30 years ago, so it must be when I was about 15, I had a pink cardigan. Mm-hmm. Believe it or not. So I think the pink thing, and nobody called me a puff because we were all wearing them. So
Nottingham. We'll go in a time machine back to Nottingham a few years ago, and see if we'll walk around town, see how long we last.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we've done that issue anyway, haven't we? You've got your position on that, and I completely understand that. I just hope that you understand that I'm not coming from a position where I
don't think that you are at all, Jason, mate. Please don't get me wrong. I don't think that's at all. I'm just talking in general terms, really. And I think that my point was that basically I think that the theory is grounded. I think obviously some people have some very, very realistic concerns, because you want the best for your children and you don't want them to make decisions that are going to be detrimental to them later on. And I get that. I'm not an idiot. All I was saying is that I think that the foundation of the theory, certainly the foundation of the gay agenda theory, came from the John Birch Society, which is essentially far-right Christian ideology that works on biblical end times and stuff like that. So they have a certain degree of bias behind that. I'm not saying that's you at all. All I'm saying is, really, to be quite honest, I've not ever seen an argument that's like, so I'm sure they'll figure it out. In regards to it, I just, I don't think this is a thing. I don't think you can aggressively change someone's sexuality, and I don't think you can aggressively change somebody's gender outside of what is necessarily, determined fashion, really, to be quite honest. And this is the point. As I say, the notions of masculinity are completely fluid. Like, things that would be considered masculine a few years ago are not considered masculine now, and things that are considered masculine now will not be considered masculine in a few years. And so I think there's a confusion in the mashing together of the terms, and one is a physiological argument, one is a societal argument, and I just think I think there's a lot of panic about it.
So, would you argue that there is, because a lot of people would say that there is some sort of agenda to merge the genders together, so that we've just sort of like got one drone type thing. I'm assuming that you would just boot that theory into touch.
Yeah, that's a kind of sort of transhumanism. It's not really my area. Again, perhaps somebody's seen something that I haven't seen, and I get the sort of occult idea of the androgyny and stuff like that, and I get that aspect, but I just don't think that at the minute that's sort of I don't think that's really something we should be worried about that much.
Well, what I wanted to get into were social media and the way that social media at the moment it's the algorithms that have popped in place. I mean, you just can't get anything anywhere. Nobody of anything of any substance won't get anywhere. You put a picture of your dinner and a million people will see it. But you're saying you're going to do a radio show like this one tonight, and it won't get anywhere. So but we're more and more becoming a society that live more online than offline. What would you think that's? I mean, people do, don't they? You see people that seem to like live their entire life online.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's appalling. Like, social media is the least social thing that you can do, and it really, really clouds your sort of worldview because it's very insular. I was talking to somebody about this yesterday. I didn't really make this connection. I've talked a bit about this before. Like, there's a CIA document called the Kubark document, and basically what it talks about is the best way to turn somebody into an easily malleable vegetative state is to isolate them and overstimulate them, which is the very definition of what Facebook and Twitter and the internet essentially is. You're on your own, and you're overstimulated, and this is. So that's why people are stuck in cells with a light on for 24 hours with white noise playing. It turns you into somebody that is easily manipulated.
Yeah.
The foundation of Facebook was basically Sean Parker of the CIA and Peter Thiel, who through In-Q-Tel, which is the CIA's venture capitalist arm, was able to promote it. It was, Zuckerberg was sort of kind of the front man, really, just to give it that sort of homespun saleability. He's like that Bernard Matthews, I don't think Bernard Matthews is down there killing those turkeys, but you get the point. The problem with Facebook and the problem with social media as well is that basically it works in a number of ways. Like, you're on your own, okay, but you've got an audience, so it works on a sort of serotonin dopamine level. When you get a response for something that you put down, you get a little buzz in your brain going, hooray! So essentially it works like gambling, but you're gambling with jokes or ideas or thoughts or whatever. And the problem with that is that basically you say the wrong thing, even if you think that, okay, I'm sure I'm going to get shit for that transgender stuff, right? Okay, but that's just my opinion, right? Okay, you're going to get nailed for it because what also Facebook does is it gives you inclusion into a group. And this is very, very difficult when you've got the fact that basically you have an audience. And the problem is that basically due to this type of thing, the fact that you might say one thing that's particularly popular, you might say one thing that's particularly negative, you might be inclined to start to alter your output, change your actual personality online in order to basically fit in a bit more. And it's incredibly, incredibly dangerous. Furthermore, if you're getting into sort of that group idea, like what does any cult offer you? It offers you a perspective on the world. It tells you where you are in the world, and it offers you the community of family. And that is exactly what you get on a minor level by joining groups and discussions on Facebook. On a minor psychological level, it works and feeds your ego and your psychological sort of fortitude in exactly the same way.
But the good thing, the ingenious thing that Facebook does is when it does pop you into like a group, it doesn't pop you into it can select what group that it pops you into, doesn't it? And how many different people see it and what people see it as well. So it's like you know where you said it selectively it pops you into a group, but they select that group and it's very distinct.
Yeah, absolutely. And now here's the problem with groups. On a very sort of basic level, you can say groupthink. Like, now there's a mind control technique that's called the Chinese method. And the gist of this is basically to aggressively socialize people. What you do is you put an American prisoner or whatever, and you whack him in a cell with a load of rabid communist Chinese guys. And they'd be just sort of, talking about the communist shit, asking him his opinion. And if he gets it wrong, he gets slapped, and they berate him for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours until he agrees with them. And then what happens is the next person that comes in, when he makes a discretion, the American soldier will be the first person to smack him down because he's been aggressively socialized. And in that way, basically because he realizes that's the only way to stop him from dying, okay? But your brain does enough sort of loops and blah, 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 blah. Now, that's exactly the same as being in a group on Facebook. You go on there and say the wrong thing, disagree with somebody's point, and see how many people jump on you, okay? It's exactly the same psychological manifestation. And the dying concept is that you have no identity online, that you have no access to your friends, to this family, to this cult. If I'm using, hyperbolic terms, but basically this is all true. You don't have access to this group that gives you that sustenance psychologically. Now, here's an even worse thing. Sooner or later, you're going to realize something that is not true, but statistically is true, is that your Facebook profile or your Twitter profile is far more popular than you. Mm-hmm. Right? It's got far more friends than you, for a start, okay? It has far more interactions throughout the day than you. Okay, so what are you going to do? Psychologically, that's telling that you need to be more like your Facebook profile. The problem with your Facebook profile, okay, your Twitter profile, your Instagram profile, is it's the greatest hits. You're far, far too multifaceted to get every aspect of your 24-hour day onto that, which is incredibly psychologically damaging. Because basically what you're constantly doing is reminding yourself that you're not quite as good as your avatar. And that's even before you get into the nonsense about basically the fact that everybody bloody lies on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. They take the best photo, they exaggerate, they only post the positive things, or, a certain type of person does. Which leads you to believe that basically your life is a lot worse than everybody else's and that you're missing out. And this causes massive amounts of anxiety and depression. The flip side is that basically because often people are lying to maintain an image on Instagram or whatever, it's again incredibly psychologically damaging because you're living a lie. And you have to maintain this in order to create the personality that you've sort of designated for yourself.
So do you think that people's personalities are being replaced by perception management, really? Because that's all it is, isn't it? People don't, they're not actually showing their actual personality. They're managing other people's perceptions of them because it's on social media.
Absolutely, and it encourages you to be lazy as well, right? Basically, ever since the advent, not since the advent of the internet, but certainly since the advent of YouTube and the advent of Facebook, research has got worse, right? Okay, there's more crap that's spread around now than ever before, like because people basically, with the other problem with social media is it's instantaneous. So you want to be the first person to get that interesting factoid out there. Problem is, it's probably bollocks. Like, but people spread it and spread it and spread it. And then basically, the problem is that people will believe it. And then you even get into the ludicrous point where people point out that it's fake. And because there's a certain psychological thing within people's brains where basically they tend to believe the first thing that they're told or the first thing that they're plausible. And it's far more difficult to convince them of a second opinion once that's sort of fixed because, again, what everybody wants in this life is psychological security. They'll do all sorts of mental gymnastics to basically prove themselves right. And again, so we're in a really, really dangerous sort of spot at the minute. And for some reason, as I spoke about this on Rich Point, for some reason, people have got it into their head that the internet is sort of like international waters or something like that. That it's there's actually true freedom on the internet. There really isn't. Like literally everything that you're doing is monitored on the internet. And there are huge corporations. The info war, so to speak, is no longer on the television. Nobody watches the television. The info war is in social media. The info war is in propaganda and sock puppet accounts and J-trig operations, creating gurus, creating people, and creating plausible theories or seemingly plausible theories that basically amount to nothing and actually have a bait and switch in the back of them that are basically going to get you to manipulate you to actually sort of go along with a particular government policy or something like that. And it's getting incredibly sophisticated. And it's incredibly prevalent as well.
It is incredibly sophisticated. Now, do you think that we've been sort of herded into these places, like Facebook
Yes.
and Twitter and what have you, and then because it's been cracked down on, anybody that's got an ounce about themselves know that if I post something, I think I'm a pretty funny bloke. Okay, and I post things that I think are funny, and I get no response, none whatsoever, even from people that I think that would respond, like my dad, who's got the same sense of humour, and I think people like that. I don't get any response. It just seems that like we've been herded into a couple of different places, and then we're being strangled.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's kind of worse than that, man, because in a way, why do you want that response? Why you've been trained to want that response? Like, not just you. I'm just using you as an example. But why is it important if you get a response? Because shit. Like, and do you know what I mean? Like, in real terms, I get it on a social level. I get it on a sort of. I even get it on. It's essentially like addiction behaviour. And everyone's guilty of it. Like, I'm on Facebook as well. But it's a strange new way of the world, isn't it? Like, basically, this is the point. I mean, it's kind of like what we're talking about, sort of like being, say, gender savvy or whatever, that we're having to teach children now. You know what else we're going to have to teach children? How to be internet savvy, which we didn't have to teach them 10 years ago. Because there's whole new avenues of information, and damaging, harmful things. You go on the internet and what you can get on the internet.
but who can we trust though, Neil? Who can we trust to tell our kids what is okay on the internet? When we get it and it's like this fake news site like Snopes, the Snopes, which is supposed to be a fact checker, and it's just nonsense. We just don't know who to trust anymore, do we?
Well, you see, again, I go to the sources. Again, it's very fashionable to bash Snopes, but people don't tend to. I've seen a couple of occasions where they've been wrong, but again, who gives a shit? Why do you go? That's the problem. Okay, nobody goes to sources. Nobody understands how to write an essay and have a counter argument and a pro argument. And test those premises out. Don't arrive with a premise. Arrive with the information and go, do I believe this? Right, here's one theory. Here's the counter theory. Let's try and prove the theory. Then let's try and disprove the theory. And then let's look at all the exculpatory evidence around it to basically see if there's any reason that this could have been introduced into us for purposes of propaganda or to try and colour the narrative, so to speak. So no, there's no one that you can trust, but you can trust sources. And that's what people need to learn. That's how to be internet savvy, is to figure out. Again, I was on a show a while ago saying that, the argument was that statistics are bad. We shouldn't use statistics because statistics are just corrupt and they can be corruptible. It's like, yeah, they can be, in the same way that language is corruptible. Right? It's just a language, but you need to be savvy enough to read a headline and go, that's bollocks. Right, okay, that's not what the story's about. That's a quote from somebody in the story, but it's the most exciting headline. So that's how you teach people to do it, by decoding media presentation. And again, going back to sources to basically prove the point. You can't really trust anybody. Trust is the thing. Everything has got an agenda behind it. Even if it's a very, very subtle political agenda, but everything has an agenda. So you've got to take that into account when looking at any information. The internet's no different from a library. Okay,
go on.
Easier to get the information. But the problem with that, as I say, is that basically it encourages you to get the easy answer and the quick answer. which is, it can be difficult, basically.
Well, that was the point I was going to make. I mean, we live in a culture anyway where we just perhaps look at the headline rather than look at the entire article and then decide what it is. And I wanted to give an example. A couple of days ago, there was something on Facebook that popped up on my timeline, and it was a woman, and she got a bear's paw in her hand, and and somebody had written, "This woman's just shot this bear, killed it, and hunted," and all the people that were commenting underneath were calling her all the names under the sun. So I had a look, and because I'd seen the picture, and it was actually a woman that was from a conservation group that had tranquilized the fucking bear, that they were going to attach something to it, so they could monitor its progress and what have you. And then they were, once it came back awake, it was released. But all the vile, evil crap, and I pointed this out. And still, after I pointed this out, that this was, this woman had not been hunting, this woman had not killed this bear, she'd been part of a conservation team, and she'd just had a photograph taken with it because it was tranquilized. People still were just ignoring what I'd said and just continuing with the vile crap.
That's because basically you were challenging their worldview. That was the first piece of information that they got. They used it to make themselves feel superior. They used it to vent some rage, because everyone's got existential rage. You can't punch your boss, but you can scream at that person across the street. Or you can, and it's even better if they're a minority or somebody that you can look down on. Do you know what I mean? It's a power play. And this is the problem with the internet, is that it encourages the worst behavior, or it certainly can encourage the worst type of behavior in people, because you have a degree of anonymity. Even if people know you and stuff like that, you're still communicating via text. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You type something that you wouldn't say to somebody's face. I mean, everybody, that's a fact, because we have this thing called Twitter beef, and quite a few people have got shot over it. I mean, actually, there's rappers and stuff that are coming out, or basically, drug dealers and things like that as well, from Chicago, particularly the south side of Chirac, who are basically saying, look, this social media is getting us all killed, because the problem is, again, you've got an audience on social media, you've got that anonymity, blah, blah, blah. Someone says some shit, and you're like, that guy punked you. No, you're not. You're going to go back and blah, 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 rah, 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 rah. And then all of a sudden you meet the guy in the street and he shoots you. And, that's a very real concern.
That's perception management as well, isn't it? If you've got that perception, if people have got that perceived image of you, that if you go and shoot somebody when they've said something on Twitter, again, it's the same sort of thing.
Yeah,
it is ridiculous. I mean, to shoot somebody over something that they've written on Twitter. I mean, I can't even imagine a situation where I'd even be angry at somebody who'd written any. And I've had things written about me. I'm presenting this show. I've been called a moron and all sorts of, a gobshite and all that sort of thing. And I really don't care. People don't, if they don't want to listen, they don't want to listen. So. It's really weird, isn't it? How it's the perception again that's the whole seems to be the whole agenda.
Absolutely. Well, that's the whole point, because if you can shape people's perceptions, it goes back to Edward Bernays and people like that. Oh, I can't remember his Walter Lippmann. If you can paint the pictures in people's heads, then we can make them act in the ways that we want them to act. If his example was that basically if somebody finds a lump of yellow metal that they believe to be gold, they'll act like it's gold. You tell them that the world is flat and there's an edge, they won't go near the edge, okay, for fear of falling off. So that's the point. If you can create these ideas in people's heads, these conflicts, these traumas, these dramas, these anxieties and these aspirations, if you can create them, then you know what they're going to be doing. It's like making a maze for a rat. You know where that rat's going to end up. Like that rat's thinking, oh, brilliant, I'm making decisions. Okay, I'm turning left, I'm going to turn right now. You're going where I'm telling you to go, because I've created the maze, mate. Bleak, innit?
Yeah, well deep, man. Well deep. Yeah,
bleak, I said.
It's all good stuff. Listen, you're listening to Raconteurs News this Tuesday evening. It's me, Jason Holmes, and I'm with Neil Sanders. I think we've got about 10 minutes to top an hour, and then till the end of the first hour, they'll play a couple of records. We've had a few comments in the chat room wanting to ask about Elon Musk and his debacle, but I think what we should do is we should probably leave that till the start of the second hour and get right into that, if that's all right with you, Neil.
If you want, can do, yeah.
Yeah. So, I just want to reassure people, Super Leads, who's in the chat room, wanting me to ask you about Elon Musk. What charities?
Yes.
I originally tried to get you on to talk about the psychology with the charities, and particularly with the adverts that you get on in the daytime. Give £3 a month, yada yada yada, do this, and even because I know people who are intelligent people. I know people who are who know exactly what I know, that when they're doing. My sister runs a group. She's got her business is fitness, so she has a fitness group and she does classes. And so every so often they do this race for life thing. I'm always there saying, race for life. All you're doing, you're raising money for the people that are running this. Mm-hmm. So we've got somebody at Cancer Research who's the CEO, who's on 250,000 quid a year, and then we've got 60 people over £100,000 a year at Cancer Research. So that's it's £6.25 million for a start that's got to be raised. I mean, do you think what's your take on that? Because for me, people aren't doing it because they're trying to raise money for good causes. I think people are doing it just to try to up themselves.
Well, how cynical do you want to be? Right, okay, let's be not cynical. Okay, people do it because they feel it's a good thing. They feel that basically they can give back in the only way that they feel they can do. Now, let's be cynical. It makes them look good, doesn't it? It makes them look good to other people. It's something that you can tell people that it makes you look good. And it's the easiest way that you can do something like that. You're doing something essentially that you enjoy or you get some secondary benefit out of, but you can position that as a very altruistic thing. And I just want to, I'm not having to go over, it's a sliding scale. Okay, it genuinely is sliding scale. There obviously are some people that just really believe that what they're doing is going to actually bring some good to the world. Okay, and then on the other end of the scale, there's people that oppose it. You can't tar everybody with a singular brush as to motive.
No. I agree.
There could be something completely different. Like the reason that she's doing it is because there's this really hunky guy that's also doing it, and she's basically desperately trying for to make him ask her out. Like there could be, do you know what I mean? There could be some other reason that people are doing stuff. But if you're talking on sort of like brass tacks and stuff like that, I would suggest it's probably a sliding scale between genuinely wanting to do some good, and perhaps either not knowing that there are maybe better ways to do that, or just giving up and going, this is the only way that I can foresee to do it in any effective way. And say on the other end of the scale, it's people that basically are doing it because that's the kind of person that they want to present themselves to the world as being. I mean, there's a big problem with that on social media as well. I get kind of annoyed with people posting sort of like charitable adverts and stuff. It doesn't tend to happen as much anymore because I think a lot of people basically got sick of it, because it's like, that is literally the least that you can do. Like, are you mad? Do you think I don't know that these charities exist? Like, what are you doing? All you're doing is putting a label on yourself, saying, I am the sort of person that might be interested in being a nice person in this particular type of way. But again, that is sliding scale. I'm sure there are some people that are genuinely involved in these things and think that they're working. But they certainly prey on these emotions. That's what the charities do. whether you think that these are good charities or bad charities is really
they do. I can see some dignity, when I'm talking about these cancer. I've got nobody in my family's died of cancer. Nobody. Not a single person, right? So I can't understand why my sister. I've got a very rare condition that nobody knows about, and yet she's not raising money for that, or she's not doing anything to raise awareness of that. So therefore, I see that, and I know this is a criticism, but I see that as her just simply wanting to promote her business and using the cancer thing because cancer's it's a fashionable thing. Her brother's got a condition that is so rare that nobody is even looking into it, and yet she's not trying to raise awareness of that. She's just simply doing that to just. As far as I'm concerned, is all she's doing that for is to raise to raise the profile of her business. So that's my problem with that.
I can't possibly speak on that particular situation because I don't know it, but I will take your word for it because I believe you. You may well be right because that's the point. People that do charity are good people, aren't they? Charity, man, charity. That's what I mean. That's one of the most despicable things about the way that celebrities attach themselves to charities. Aside from the very obvious promotion of their own particular brand, what a lot of people don't realise is, if you make a charitable donation, it's tax deductible.
Yeah. So,
he gave $100,000 to charity. That's $100,000 tax he doesn't have to pay. Okay, and he's got $100,000 worth of advertising out of that. So, that's a very cynical way of looking at it, but it's true. So there's lots of different things, isn't there? There's a tug on the heartstrings, and there's this could happen to you in a few years' time. Like me and my friends used to sit around, particularly our friends' older brothers, whenever the heart attack and sort of adverts come on. Quick, turn the channel over quickly. We don't want to watch this. It's all a bit real. But that's the point of the advert, isn't it? It's supposed to make you terrified. So you'll sit there and go, shit, if I give them £1, they might develop this technology to save my life. Now, here's the thing. It really depends on how cynical you want to be. How do adverts work? Adverts work by appealing to the reptilian brain and then giving you a justification for it, an intellectual justification for it. Okay, best one of that is a Hummer, right? Okay, it's a weapon. The reason you're buying a Hummer or a Land Rover or anything like that is so that you're the most powerful thing on the road. Right? Let's not piss about. That's exactly why you're doing it. The reason that you'll tell people for it is because you've got kids. You need to protect them, which is technically true, right? It's technically true, but you could protect them by driving more sensibly. There are other ways of protecting them. That's just an intellectual justification. So let's look at the way that charities do. It appeals to the reptilian brain. You're going to die. Okay, what's the intellectual justification? Well, it's very simple and straightforward with that. I don't want to die. I can spare a couple of quid. It might help. That's it. And then the other one tugs on the heartstrings. Okay. Now, again, this depends with all of these things as well. It very much depends on how cynical you want to be. There are people that will argue that basically all advertising boils back down to sleeping with the opposite sex. So basically, why are you giving to charity, or what's it suggesting? If you're a nice person, you're the sort this is what a nice person would do, and a nice person is more likely to attract the opposite sex. That's very very glib, but there are people who have made that argument that basically everything.
There certainly are. Neil, we've got to an hour. We're going to take a bit of a break. Andy is producing for me this evening. Andy Young is producing for me. Are you there, Andy? Are you okay? Are you ready to do this break? Just give me a... Yep.
Yeah, we've got a couple of tunes lined up, mate.
Excellent. All right. Well, we'll be back in the after a couple of tunes with Neil Sanders. It's Raconteurs News that you're listening to with me, Jason Holmes. raconteursnews.com. You can find us on Facebook Live as well, facebook.com/Holmes2. You can see me on there. I don't know what the sound quality is like on there at the moment, but Andy's producing for me this evening. He's going to play a couple of tunes. We'll be back, and we're going to be talking Elon Musk. Ooh, can't wait to get into this one. All right, after this one. All right, cheers, Andy. Play us a record.
Big issue seller, cause he's probably on heroin. I walk past him with a grin, and if I can, I kick his dog. No, I don't give to the busker. He's talentless and lazy. He's ruining the country. I think he should get a job. Instead I give my money to Walmart for his tax evasion, Primark for his child labour, Texaco for the next invasion. Don't give a fuck about you, give my money to the millionaires. It's 8 p.m. and it's Tuesday night. I got my laptop on and I feel alright. I got a few joints rolled and my munchies made. Got my headphones on and I close the door, don't disturb me. It's time to stand up tall and say some things about the shitty world we're living in, with the boys at Raconteurs News. C'est Raconteurs, c'est Raconteurs, c'est Raconteurs News, Raconteurs News, Raconteurs News, Raconteurs News, Raconteurs News. Oh yeah.
Good evening and welcome to Raconteurs News. This Tuesday evening we are broadcasting live on Spreaker.com. Do search for us on Spreaker and Raconteurs News, and also on raconteursnews.com. And I've just popped on the Facebook Live as well, if anybody's interested in looking at my ugly mug while I sit here and talk nonsense for the evening. I hope you've had a great day. I really do. Honestly, you know, these people that will tell you that they hope you've had a good day, they don't really mean it, but I hope you have had a great
It's 8 p.m. and it's Tuesday night. I got my laptop on and I feel alright. I got a few joints rolled and my munchies made. Got my headphones on and I close the door, don't disturb me. It's time to stand up tall and say some things about the shitty world we're living in, with the boys at Raconteurs News. C'est Raconteurs, c'est Raconteurs, c'est Raconteurs News, Raconteurs News, Raconteurs News, Raconteurs News, Raconteurs News. Oh yeah.
Good evening and welcome to Raconteurs News. This Tuesday evening we are broadcasting live on Spreaker.com. Do search for us on Spreaker and Raconteurs News, and also on raconteursnews.com. And I've just popped on the Facebook Live as well, if anybody's interested in looking at my ugly mug while I sit here and talk nonsense for the evening. I hope you've had a great day. I really do. Honestly, you know, these people that will tell you that they hope you've had a good day, they don't really mean it. But I hope you have had a great day. And thanks for listening to us. And thanks for the exceptional comments that I've had recently regarding my health, and people have been getting in touch with me and saying, you know, wishing me all the best and all that. So anybody that's well, in fact, all of you that's done that, then I really, really do appreciate it. And sometimes I'm terribly slow at replying to people, but I will reply as to every single person. So thank you very much for that as well. It is Tuesday night, and a big thank you to Super Leeds, who's been busily chatting on the website on raconteursnews.com. There's a chat room in there, and he's he's been posting some good stuff in there. Not very nice things about Sheffield Wednesday, but you know, if he's gonna, we might as well lose. He's put a bet on Sheffield Wednesday to lose tonight. As everybody knows, I'm a season ticket holder at Sheffield Wednesday.
Get the wiggies cause I'm off to the hole in the road. I'm wagging off school and I'm off to the city, watching telly all night and I'm not looking pretty. See, I got this job downtown, selling knocked off ladies watches for £1. For a really dodgy man that I met in a dodgy cafe. You know, he said to me, the girl who sold these yesterday wasn't selling very carefully. Police came along and took her and all my watches away. So if you see some coppers, you grab my stuff and leg it, boy, right away. I'll be in the cafe. I'm just a boy from Sheffield, making his way through life. I'm just a boy from Sheffield.
Now.
All right, welcome back to Raconteurs News. It's Tuesday, and it's Tuesday night show, and I'm joined tonight by Neil Sanders, and we've been having a frank discussion right up until now, and we had a little bit of one then, didn't we, in the break? we still just can't seem to get off the trans issue, can we?
Well, I say, like, I kind of understand people's concept, but if you can explain to me exactly how they're ramming it down, what age children's throat, tell me the lesson plan, exactly what they're telling them, then, you know, I can respond to it, because I don't know. All I've seen is people going, transgenders.
Well, I can't, so
right.
I'm not going to do that. So I'm just going to hold you to what your opinion is your opinion. Everyone's got an opinion about everything, and your opinion is probably more valid than most people's.
Hey, no, it's not.
I understand what you mean about.
It's not more valid at all. Okay, and if somebody shows me a lesson plan that is clearly horrific, okay, and they say this is being shown to 3-year-old kids, okay, and they're being wrapped across their knuckles with a ruler if they don't repeat it back, or something like that, then I'll go, that's monstrous, and I may well change my opinion. But I personally haven't actually seen anything that's made me go, yeah, that's disastrous. That's my argument. That's my position. I understand people like, if someone can show me something that is really, really bad, right? Okay, that is genuinely sourced, that doesn't come from a crappy, like, you know, propaganda rag, then, you know, I will gracefully read it, and if the evidence is strong, I'll go, oh shit, I was completely wrong about that.
Well, we know where you're at on that, and let's move on. Let's go on to Elon Musk. We really wanted to get into this, didn't we?
Well, if you like, I don't give a shit, if I'm honest.
Really? You don't give a shit?
I like the rockets coming down simultaneously. I tell you what, I like two things, right? I like the rocket coming down simultaneously. I thought, shit, we're in the future now, right? And I like the fact that he's got "Don't Panic" on the dashboard, which is a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy reference, and that he's not actually, I don't think he's explained that at all, which is proper nerdy. Other than that, I don't care. Really, he shot a car into space allegedly. Like the footage, I know what you're going to say, that the footage looks monstrously fake, which you have to admit it kind of does. But on the other hand, I've never seen anything to compare it to what it's supposed to look like. So but yeah, what's your thoughts on it, man? I think Elon Musk is a very, very weird guy and he's hilarious.
Look, it's for me. I can't get over what I can't get round is when they say to me, that you can't see stars when you're in space.
Okay, that's
for me that's just the one fundamental thing. And that's the most suspicious thing for me, because if they're doing this, if they're gonna have add stars in it, it's gonna take forever. They're going to have to get the constellations right, because people are, nerdy, star enthusiastic, and astronomers and things like that. But I can see stars from here on Earth through all the pollution and the atmosphere and everything, but I can't see them in space. Right. Through no pollution and no atmosphere, it just doesn't make sense.
Isn't it big? Isn't the explanation for it that there is no atmosphere, so basically it doesn't work in the same way? The conditions are completely different.
But I can see Earth.
Right.
So if I can see Earth, why can I not see?
Because they're light years away. Like the closest star is the sun, which is what, 276 million miles, or is it whatever?
About 238 in it. 238 million miles. Oh, is that yeah? 93 million miles away the sun, isn't it? Supposedly.
The universe is big, mind-bogglingly big. To quote,
I know it's mind-bogglingly big, but why would I be able to see it on Earth, but I can't see it in space? It just seems to me that their explanation of it just doesn't seem to make any sense.
Well, but by now, if they were making it like with the technology, Richard D. Hall, you've seen like with the very limited sort of like technology that he has, right? Okay, he was able to physically map out the flight path and the radio path to a 3D model exactly 100% accurate of New York City on 9/11, right? Mm-hmm. You can create settings now and such like that. They could create a piss poor computer model of the stars now and just drop everything into that scenario should they desire to. I mean, the argument would be that basically, well, they couldn't do it in the past, so why would they do it now? And that would go back on the thing. Yeah, no, fair enough. And it's a difficult one, really. To be quite honest, like the only explanation is the official explanation, isn't it? That basically, no, of course not, because they're light years away and that you wouldn't refract through the light. It very much depends on whether you believe anything that comes out of NASA's or whoever's mouth. But it's not just NASA, though, is it? Like, do you know what I mean? Like in all these shots where there's no stars, there's various space entities. China, I believe India has, England, Russia certainly has. Elon Musk is a private enterprise as well. So basically, I don't know. Like, I wasn't of the opinion that it was a fake footage of the Tesla going along, because it's like, well, why? Like, I mean, the reason I could think is basically because it's a fabulous advert and stuff like that. But like, just. I don't think it's that difficult to shoot shit into space. I mean, they missed the actual orbit that they were going to do, apparently. So they were supposed to like get to Mars or something, and they've missed it by miles or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. So what's your opinion? You think the whole thing is fake just to sort of like continue the sort of like fascination with the space program, or what?
Yeah, I think it's probably to take, in my opinion, right, and this is just my opinion, and this is speculation, and I think it's to take away the spotlight from NASA, because the NASA stuff is, oh my God, it's just ridiculously faked. The ISS and what have you. And also, the one thing that made me think, right? Elon Musk, this guy's a billionaire, right? He's a businessman.
Yeah.
Right? He is undertaking the greatest private achievement by anybody on this planet.
Yeah.
By doing this. Why is this Tesla car not covered in advertising? Why?
It is covered in advertising.
Well, it's not, is it?
He's selling his car. Like, you can't buy advertising like that. Like,
that's one product. I mean, would there not be like a McDonald's or, you know,
McDonald's? I'm Elon Musk. Is what his attitude is. I don't need McDonald's money. Like,
he doesn't need McDonald's money, but you know, he's a businessman, and hopefully, if he's a businessman, he's not made his money by grandstanding and making businesses at a loss, has he? Which this has cost him $90 million.
Yeah, but he's had $90 million worth of advertising for Tesla cars. You can't buy advertising like that. That's the most impressive advertising campaign that we've ever seen in the entire history of the world. Why would he give that a slice of that to some other corporation? That's why. That's why he's a billionaire. That's why he's a brilliant businessman. Because everyone else would have gone, shit, yeah, let's stick that one up. He's gone, no, this is me. This is mine. This is going to get played forever, right? Okay, this is going to get played for the next 50 years. And you know what? They're not going to be talking about McDonald's. They're going to be talking about Tesla cars and only Tesla cars. That's why he didn't put any stickers all over it. It's a very clever business strategy. It's not the obvious one. The obvious one would be to take the easy book. And he could have charged a fortune for it, but he didn't, because he wants to promote a brand in the same way that Apple want to promote a brand, a monopolizing brand. He wants it to be Tesla. That's the car that you think of when you think of electric cars. That's what he wants to do. So that's, in my opinion, why he didn't put stickers all over it.
So, in your opinion, I mean, what about the rockets landing? Did that look fake?
Yes, it did look fake. But then basically, I've had a gander, and there's loads and loads of footage of them trying other landings with like numerous cameras all over it. And there's loads and loads of failures. As far as I'm aware, they've only done it once before, and it landed on a platform in the sea. It was like a singular one. There's lots of footage about it. It looks unbelievable. But as far as I can tell, it did actually happen.
Wow. Well, I tell you what.
Christ! I mean, did you see the drone display? Like, the drone display that was it a big skier or a big snowboarder at the Olympics? At the opening ceremony. That was crazy, man. Like,
no, I've not seen that. No.
Oh, it's mental. Like, I tell you, man, we're living in the future. It's crazy. Like, I when I saw that, it was unbelievable, because it looks like Thunderbirds. And I was quite skeptical, but I've had a bit of a gander around, and as far as I can tell, not being an expert and this not being my area or my forte at all, I was convinced.
Wow. Well, I've got to tell you, Neil, this has not quite been the interview that I expected it to be. But you know, I respect your opinions on everything, and I respect your position on things.
I'm an enigmatic character, man. What can I say?
But yeah, it's not quite been quite what I were expecting, but that's even better.
No, I don't know better. I have a different opinion. Like,
I said that's even better. I wasn't, if I'd have just done the interview that I was expecting, this is better.
Okay, good. I mean, I'll probably get some shit for this, but fair enough. But I'm not gonna lie to people. Like, okay, this is the point. Like, I might well be wrong. Okay, I'm as fallible as anybody else. But I'm not. I don't tend to lie to people.
No, well, nobody. I don't. Well, I'd hope that nobody sets out with the intention to lie to somebody, and I don't believe you're lying. I think you're just looking at things from perhaps a different perspective, and us people that think that we're enlightened, sometimes we need to have a little bit of a check on on what we're saying and what we're thinking. So and it's good to be able to think in a different way. It's
different opinions. What makes the world fascinating? If everybody thought the same, it would be bloody boring.
Boring as. Boring as. So, what are you up to at the moment? What are you doing at the moment? Are you writing any more books or doing any more stuff, or are you just touring with your band? What is it? Murderous Flags.
I'm not doing anything, to be quite honest. I put that book out a few months ago, and I'm just sort of like seeing how that does. Really, I mean, I was writing that for a long time. I started it in 2012, basically. So, what happened? I was off with a spinal injury. My spine pulled itself out of place, and so I spent a lot of time. I gave myself a hunchback, which is not fun. So I was laid up for about 7 months, and basically was just reading all the Manson stuff. But that's when I started typing it, basically in about 2012. So I've been doing that for an awful long time. I'm a bit at just sort of like in a sort of lull at the minute, because I don't really have a project in mind, which is a bit annoying for me, because I'm a bit like, oh shit, what am I going to do? So I've been kind of looking at the sort of, I don't know, it depends, man. It depends whether you want to talk about this, really. Like, I've been kind of looking at sort of like Cambridge Analytica and bits of things like that. Did you see the Rich Planet thing that I did about Trump and Robert Mercer and like the people behind him? And I there's a degree of normalizing right-wing propaganda that's sort of seeped into sort of the alternative media.
Right. Yeah. I didn't see. I don't know if I saw the Rich Planet thing. I have seen all the Rich Planet thing, the episodes. So I have probably seen it.
I just don't trust Trump at all. Like, I think it's a big con. Like, I think, yeah, I've actually I've read that book, The Fire and the Fury. The Michael Wolff book that was causing all the stink. And his postulation in that is that basically Donald Trump didn't actually want to become president. He felt that he would win, but he would get the sort of the credibility off the back of it. He would be able to sort of howl that, oh, it's so unfair, and see how you people don't get sort of like treated in the way that they respect you, etc., etc., etc. And it was a real shock to him that he won. And what he expected to do was lose, and then use that sort of as a platform to start a media sort of enterprise. And to be quite honest, I can believe that. I said that 6 months ago on Rich Planet. Like, I said, I don't think he wanted to do it. I think he thinks that he can do it piece of piss now, but I don't think he wanted to do it. Like, one of the main reasons, there's two reasons, really. One of the main reasons is the fact that he didn't finance his own campaign, despite the fact that he lied to the public and told people that he financed his own campaign. He didn't put any money into it at all. He gave himself a loan of $10 million, which he recouped from donations and put straight back into his business. The person that actually put the money behind it was right-wing, like, white supremacist billionaire lunatic and founder of Breitbart News and obvious donor to Drudge Report and InfoWars, Robert Mercer, who basically created Steve Bannon and Milo Yiannopoulos. And, this is a very obvious coup on the part of right-wing billionaires like him and William Reznor, who set up the MPI, which basically, founds and funds Richard Spencer, who created the term alt-right. And I think what they've done is basically, through basically like institutions like Cambridge Analytica, they've got connections to like NCL and which is basically founded by British military intelligence. There are certain right-wing billionaires that are basically trying to engineer that type of ideology into the mainstream to an extent, and we're seeing that certainly to a degree in Europe, but definitely in America. And I think what they're doing is they're staking it through places like 4chan, Reddit, InfoWars, Drudge
But
Breitbart.
Neil,
Yeah.
couldn't the same argument be put against left-wing billionaires that are trying to? It's subversion, isn't it? That's what
Absolutely,
it is.
it's subversion. But the problem is that basically, like,
to single out right-wing and Trump people, it just seems a little bit turt to me, because it seems that
he's the president.
Everything just happens on both sides the same. The same.
No, but he's the president. What I'm talking about is the way that basically they've engineered a populist coup to basically create this character as being of the people, and it's not. It's not only that he's a corporatist, it's that the people actually behind him have got a far darker and nastier agenda even than that. And this is provable.
But couldn't the same thing be levelled when Obama came into power in 2008?
Absolutely.
And the same thing, we were told it were going to be change, and it were going to be this, and it were going to be that, and the other.
Yeah.
So listen. All I'm saying, I'm not an apologist for Trump at all. I really ain't got a dog in this fight. All I'm just trying to say is that to put it to one side or another, it can be quite trite, and it's the tactic that's been employed by both sides that needs to be exploited.
Absolutely, but they're not in power at the time at the minute, are they? When Obama was in power, I talked about Obama. When Hillary Clinton was campaigning, I talked about Hillary Clinton. When this idiot won, I talk about him and the funding behind him and the lies that he spits out and the bullshit that is coordinated through social media, the majority of it. Do you know what Cambridge Analytica actually is?
No.
It's a data mining organisation that basically connected up with Aggregate IQ, which is a Canadian part of it, and NCL. NCL is a psychological warfare operation that is founded by ex-British military intelligence that has on its board members of Marconi Industries, the Pentagon, US Marines, British military intelligence, and British military psychological operations. And what they do is they influence governments. They influence public opinion in PSYOPs. They're a PSYOPs organisation. And what they did was they merged with Cambridge Analytica just before the Brexit vote and before the Trump vote, and were paid huge amounts of money by the GOP campaign, and also by Leave EU and various other people connected to Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage, by the way, is also sponsored and paid for by Robert Mercer. That's why Breitbart set up their London operation to promote Nigel Farage in the UK. Now, what Cambridge Analytica does is it basically steals, or it bought everybody's Twitter data and your Facebook data and or your Instagram data and any social media data that was available, and it examined it and looked at it and basically set algorithms against it, looking for the things that you hated. And then what it did was it was something called micro-targeting, which was it created hundreds and hundreds of sock puppet accounts and basically bombarded individuals with different stories or different opinions or different factoids or different seemingly just conversations that promoted a specific view. And in this particular case, it was either a pro-Brexit view, an anti-EU view, or a pro-Trump view, or an anti-Hillary Clinton view. Now, technically, actually, basically, the Leave EU and Leave.gov, Leave.eu, are embroiled in a bit of a sort of a court. Well, they're being investigated in a minute because what they did was they paid far more than the 7 million that they're actually allowed to do in campaigning. But they did it outside of the European Union. They paid it to a Canadian firm, which means that basically they can't have their books looked at, which is desperately illegal. But the point behind all of this is that basically through this micro-targeting, they figured it was really desperately psychologically devious. They figured out, like, if you hate something like, I don't know, let's be glib, you hate Chinese food, they'll put a dozen articles basically saying Trump hates Chinese food and Hillary Clinton hates Chinese food. I know that's really glib, but basically that was the thing. And they mired this up with another basically cottage industry, which was in Tepavelis, which is Macedonia. And basically, they went to the university there and hired all of the students and set up this village, which had a load of cottage industries, which was basically pumping out anti-Hillary Clinton, pro-Trump propaganda. And this was basically paid for by the same campaign. Now, this doesn't mean that basically your opinion on Trump is incorrect, or your opinion on Brexit is incorrect, or that your reason to vote to leave the EU or to vote for Trump to be president was incorrect or was in any way influenced. It just means that basically billionaires have got connections to the White House, the Pentagon, Marconi Industries, British military intelligence, British military psychological warfare operations, and have got a track record of overthrowing and installing right-wing dictators in African nations wanted you to manipulate. Mm-hmm. And that's a fact. That's an absolute solid gold fucking fact that I can prove on an Etch-a-Sketch, right? Okay, so that's why I talk about this, because there's an actual line. There's a crime being committed to manipulate the public, okay, for some reason that I don't quite understand, right? Okay, that's absolutely 100% provable. That's not bullshit like so-and-so donated so-and-so to this foundation, which eventually trickled down to this. This is about the people that are in power now and are making policy that's going to affect your lives for the next 3 years, maybe 8 years. Certainly in England, it's going to affect our lives for the next Christ knows how. Okay, and you've been sold a pig in a poke. All that rain on your back, right? Okay, it's piss, right? And that's what I'm really, really concerned about, is that basically someone has a really, really vested interest in manipulating the populace to think in a particular way. And this isn't really being examined by anyone in any sort of great detail.
No, but do you think that we're sort of distracted, by some of the things we've talked about tonight, the Elon Musk thing and, other things that you've disagreed with me on, or when we're talking about trans? Do you think that that's just put in place to sort of hide what's really going on, or
I think some of it is. I think it's about rallying to groups, isn't it? That's what the point of a lot of stories, and particularly this manipulation by JTRIG operations and by people like Cambridge Analytica, okay, is by mysteriously taking ideas or ideologies or concepts about things that are happening in the world and trying to tie them down to political lines, or trying to tie them down to group or ideological lines, so that basically people are into arguments. Okay, like for some reason we lost the idea that it's perfectly okay to have a different opinion with someone and go, oh, that's interesting, fair enough, I think something completely different. I get what you're saying. I think I understand your point. I think I understand your argument. I happen to think something completely different. And that's it. That's absolutely perfectly okay. There's nothing wrong with that. If, as I said, if everybody thought the same, we would never come to any consensus. Like we'd never be in complete consensus, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're right. It doesn't mean that either of us are right. You know what? The answer might be actually lie somewhere in between, or it might be a completely different option none of us have considered. But you know what? If we're too afraid to even put your head above the parapet and say, no, I disagree. Respectfully, I disagree. Not being an arsehole, not being a troll, right? Okay, and not taking it personally when you are going to get something wrong. Again, that is kind of difficult, because basically, you all the time you're asking for somebody to be the bigger man, okay, and it's really, really difficult when people say, "See, you're wrong, you fucking moron." Like, it's difficult at that point to go, yes, no, you're right, actually, thank you for that. No,
I am a fucking moron, and please do call me more things. It's ridiculous, isn't it?
Quite, but again, I don't think that's people's problem. Like people's, well, I mean, ultimately people are responsible. But the thing is that basically this is how social media works. That's perfectly. There's different rules on social media, and there's different rules on the internet to real life. There's stuff that's perfectly acceptable on the internet that, of course, you wouldn't wear on a t-shirt. Like, that's kind of the point of the internet. It's a bit dirty,
a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely, but it's very strange. And again, this is the problem: is these are relatively new technologies, and we'd be mad to think that basically powers that be aren't trying to manipulate certain things and to influence certain things and to, wind people up. And as I say, social media and the internet is the battleground now. I strongly believe, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with you on that one. And like we talked about earlier on, we've all been sort of herded into Facebook and Twitter to a lesser extent, but mostly Facebook. And people think that now it's like Facebook has become the internet.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, yeah. Because it depends how you use it. You can't speak for everybody, but it becomes far too important for people. And it proffers a sense of self-importance as well. Like, I have this opinion, blah, blah, step back, I've got an opinion. But that's true of, like, YouTube and everything to an extent. But again, it depends, I suppose, how you do it. I'm sure there's some people that think I'm a complete arsehole like that. Like, I don't try to be, but, like, it's very, very difficult. Like, but yeah. Yeah, it certainly has created a second nature in people that obviously wasn't there a few years ago, because, and I don't think everybody knows the rules yet.
Do you think that people have become almost schizophrenic because they've got an online persona and they've got their own persona as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I said that earlier. Like, absolutely, it causes you to. It's weird because basically, as I say, your online personality is probably more popular than you, so it makes you want to try and live up to things and present.
So what happens when you try to emulate your online personality in real life? I mean, we're going to get some sort of conflict here, aren't we?
Absolutely, it doesn't always work. It doesn't. It often never works, and people get sort of like exposed for lying online as well. But this is the problem, is it? It's a presentation thing. South Park, excuse me. South Park are often very, very insightful, and they did a really brilliant one. It's the Kim Kardashian episode, where basically all these girls Photoshop their sort of pictures and have this incredible sort of online presence. And so all the lads are sort of fighting to go out with these girls that aren't necessarily terribly attractive, but have an incredible online presence, because that's more important than reality. And that is absolutely true. Like, that is becoming the best example of that is like, why have people got their phones out at concerts recording the concert? Like, you're missing it. You're there and you're fucking missing it. What's wrong with you? Like, it's just, like, I hark back to the days where there was what happened to crowd surfing?
Even when you're at something live, you've still got to view it through a screen. I see it as that. I mean, I went to the last concert I went to, and on my daughter's 18th birthday was S Club 7. I fucking love S Club 7. Don't ask me why, and please don't judge me about it. But I went to S Club 7's last concert at Sheffield Arena, and it was absolutely fantastic, and I loved the lot of it. I probably got about 2 photographs, but there were a lot of people there that were filming it and through the phones, and I'm thinking to myself, what you're doing is you're replacing, because you're not at home watching it on a screen, you're replacing that with actually having your screen with you, and you're watching it through a screen. It's something that you're live watching, and
it's because it's because the recording and the presenting of your lifestyle is more important than living your life, and it's terrible. Like, I'm sure I've said this before, but basically around Nottingham, like, all the restaurants now, there's no shops in the centre of town. Like, everything's closed down. Like, there's just restaurants, and all of them have got glass frontages, right? And the point is to be seen in them, right? So the point is not to experience life anymore. It's to report on your past experience of life, to show off to other people, like, which is really, really psychologically damaging.
Yeah. I'm just replied to a few a few people in the chat room that have been telling me about calling me out because I'm an S Club 7 fan. But if you knew the story, you'd understand it. But I'm a huge S Club 7 fan. Anyway, what I did want to talk. There was something else I would just wanted to get into. Go on.
Paedophile hunters, I think you wanted to talk about.
Paedophile hunters, yes, that's the thing. Yeah, I had one on. I had a guy on a couple of weeks ago who was a paedophile hunter, and what interests me is that the amount of people that are doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And the psychology around the people that are watching, because if I see one, it pops up on my feed, on my Facebook feed, and it says somebody's, they're doing a sting or whatever, and there might be about 4,000 or 5,000 people watching it. So, what's behind that? I'm really behind them. I really like what they do, but what's your thoughts?
I tend to think that they're actually counterproductive, if I'm honest. Have they ever caught anybody like a Jimmy Savile or a Cyril Smith, or like a serial paedophile, or do they tend to catch sad acts that have been lured into it? It's very. I have a similar opinion to catch a predator. I don't think. I think it's problematical in many ways. Right? Okay. I think what
are you talking about the end? When you say to catch a predator, are you talking about the NBC series?
Yeah.
It was like it's a few years ago old, and it's about 10 years old. Go on. Sorry.
I find it slightly problematical in a few ways. And I'm sure that the majority of the people that are watching it, the majority of the people that are involved in it, are very, are in it for the best of intentions. But I find it's slightly problematical for several reasons. Okay, I don't doubt that there's a problem. Okay, the police are underfunded, and these things should be investigated far more heavily. I get that, but I think that perhaps vigilantism is not the way to go. I would be interested to see how many of these cases actually successfully were prosecuted. I think the problem with vigilantism is that basically it is desperately open to corruption and to improper practices like entrapment. I think that the problem with this is that basically it falls into the stereotype that the paedophile is that dirty man down the street with the Mac, and not the institutionalized paedophile like the MP or the social worker or the care worker at the care home or the celebrity. And so in that way, it basically is slightly problematical. I say I would be very interested to see how many of these actual cases have been to court. I would also be interested in see how many of these have been sort of like malicious intent, because obviously if you don't have the sort of tracking, the problem is that this person is on the internet being exposed as a paedophile before anybody else has had a say. I think that some of the people that are involved in it are basically very, very violent ex-football hooligans and right-wing nutters and stuff like that. And so my suspicion with that is that there's going to be a bait and switch at some point that basically indicates that it's a certain type of person that is more inclined to be a paedophile. And I think to an extent it turns it into a sport, like a blood sport as well. And again, my chief concern with it is that basically you're not really catching, proper paedophiles, so to speak. You're catching lonely people that really should. Again, it's a crime. I'm not sticking up for these people at all. But is it actually diverting the problem? Is it actually seeming to make an impact whilst not actually doing it? And I would also be slightly concerned about certain people, not all, because as I said earlier, I'm sure that most people get into it with the best of intentions. But I'm sure some people do it because basically it's a way to make themselves appear like a hero. And it doesn't take a lot of doing, and it's a hot button topic, and it can be utilised like that. So in all those senses, from a legal standpoint, from a demonization standpoint, from the standpoint that basically it changes the public perception on what a paedophile is, and for various other reasons, I'm actually a bit wary of the whole thing, to be quite honest. I'm sure there are cases that have been, fabulous, but seriously, I mean, I'm not actually totally up on it. What is the conviction rate off the back of it, and have they ever actually caught anybody that is like turned out to be a really serious serial paedophile?
Well, that was one of the questions I asked, and to be fair, I was only speaking to one of the people that a hunter does these stings and things like that. So I only had the perspective of one person, and to be fair, he'd not been doing it that long. But it's very difficult to get somebody to agree to come on air who does this sort of thing. And I did say to them, and if anybody wants to listen back, I did say to them that I found it rather uncomfortable viewing. Right, I found it uncomfortable viewing, and I was trying to work out why I found it uncomfortable viewing, because I'm a father. I've got a daughter. I mean, she's 20 now, so she's grown up and gone. But I do understand the feelings that people have towards these predators, but I also noticed that there was perhaps a vulnerability about the people that were being captured, and that was being exploited, and it wasn't being presented in the right manner. So
yeah,
it was obviously got somebody who got Asperger's or somebody who was autistic, and for me that made that uncomfortable. And I'm not somebody who's going to apologise for paedophiles or somebody.
Not, no.
But these were probably 18, 19, 20, even mid-20-year-olds that perhaps were really only on the same mental level as the person that they were decoying, and that's the only people that they figured that they could deal with or talk to, and they got into something if you're of that fucking ilk, if you're of that, if you've got that that condition that you're autistic, or you've got a mental age younger, or something like that, then that's what I didn't agree with. I didn't agree with the people that were the people that were that were just being dirty bastards, and fine, fucking put them all over Facebook. I just didn't agree. Sometimes I found it awkward. I found it difficult.
Couldn't you just pass that information? If you've had a conversation where basically somebody's done that, okay, like arranged to meet up with a 13-year-old or whatever, would it not be more sensible to just store that on a file, take that to somewhere where they could be looked at and properly prosecuted? Because I just think that it's like you say, the chance of prosecution is far detrimented by the fact that you've basically put them on Facebook straight away. Like, they're not going to get a fair trial, which is probably going to cause a mistrial. The level of the sort of investigation is to be shown, and if the investigation is solid, basically it's not entrapment, then hand that to the police. Okay, I get this, right? Okay, I get that the police are shit, but when you've handed that to the police, that's a case that you can campaign on and say, look, we told you about this. Then you make the social media campaign on the back of that. We told you about this 6 months ago, and you've done nothing about it. Then that's proper due process. Okay, and for all sorts of reasons, and mostly because, as I say, the chances of prosecution are probably massively diminished because of the tactics that are used. And the second point is that it feeds into the stereotype that the paedophile is the lunatic, the loser at the end of the street, okay? Not the institutionalized paedophile, not the ongoing child sex trade, not the, paedophilic brothels and that type of thing.
But there will be people that say that, all right, this might not be the the elite paedophiles. It might not be the elite, but there are people that would say, but still these people need exposing because they would, given the opportunity, abuse a child.
Okay, but again, 2 points, right? What convictions have you got off the back of that, and how do we know? How do we absolutely know that this hasn't been some sort of entrapment? That this evidence is real? And again, because I'm not an expert on this, there may well be people that show it and say, look, this guy's been doing this for years. He's got a reputation, blah, 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 etc. But I still think that the sort of the way that it's done is probably a bit counterproductive.
I agree with you. I agree with you on the point that which I said before, the presentation, the way that things are done, the way that usually, oftentimes it's somebody who's clearly vulnerable who shouldn't be on Facebook Live at all, and shouldn't be. But we've still got these people, and we've got people baying for blood as well. I mean, you get people baying for blood. I get.
Well, I mean, this is the problem as well, as it does generate a sort of lynch mob mentality, which is dangerous. But I get it. I understand. This is ridiculous. The investigation by the police into these types of crimes is woefully inadequate. All I'm saying is that is this really the best tactic to actually achieve the ends that you want to achieve? And I understand people's frustration and I understand people's tactics, although I do doubt a small percentage of these people that I believe that they're actually going out to get fame off the back of this and make themselves appear to be a very good person. It's very much like you talking about your sister doing the run for life. If you're a paedophile hunter, then anything else that you've done in your entire life really doesn't matter, does it? You might have beaten your wife. You might have used to go out and stab up people for being black or whatever. You might have a criminal record as long as your arm because you're not a particularly nice person. But you're a paedophile hunter. So it's like it's almost like this. I've taken my vows now. Everything is all my sins have been absolved. And there will be a certain
I can see that argument. I can see that argument, but my problem is that how you say I'm a paedophile hunter. Anything that I've done in the past, that always gets brought up anyway. Anything anyone's done in the past will always get brought up. If
you say that, but people forgive
themselves into the public arena as a paedophile hunter, and they're doing good and they're doing this and doing that, there's always going to be somebody that's going to drag up your little thing in your past.
Of course there is, but there's also going to be people that basically stick up for you for whatever reason, and that's in any realm. You could be a popular sort of media pundit and go on a radio show and basically say that paedophilia is all right and that you've witnessed Hollywood executives raping children, and still your fan base will do mental gymnastics and flip out and go, oh well, no, he's still cool, he's all right, he's okay. Yeah. So that's the thing. Like it is like that. That's my entire point. Paedophilia is of course abhorrent, and so in today's society, one would assume that a paedophile hunter is perhaps of the most noble things that you could do. You're literally saving children from monsters. However, is that really what's going on in this case?
And people are, it's like it's so easy for them. It's just like a one headline thing. I hate paedophiles.
Yeah,
I'll give you an example. About God, it must be about 8 or 9 years ago, 9 or 10 years ago, when I was still DJing. And my agent said to me one night, he said, listen, I've got this karaoke gig that you can do on a Sunday night in Workstop. It's a piece of piss, and I just go and collect 120 quid and do fuck all. And so I went along and I did all this stuff, and then this one night, these lads came up to me and they went, "Have you got? I'm the leader of the gang. I am." And I said, "That's Gary Glitter, isn't it?" And he went, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, I've got it, but he's a paedophile. You're not going to sing that, are you?" And he went, "Oh, but it's a great song, though, isn't it? It's a great song." And I'm not playing it. I can't play it. It would just
play David Bowie though.
Well, yeah, exactly. He'd not been outed by then, had he?
Well, no, I'm only messing, really. Like, Gary Glitter is a very, very, very different scenario to David Bowie, although it's very difficult to actually, and Steven Tyler and Led Zeppelin and Iggy Pop and Rod Stewart. And basically every pop star that was around in the 70s and 80s. And probably
I take it I'm not talking to Neil anymore.
Huh?
I take it I'm not talking to Neil anymore.
Why?
Because you don't sound like yourself.
Don't I?
No.
I'm just pointing out that basically. Oh, right. Sorry. No. There's a long line of rock stars that have had dalliances with incredibly young girls. It's like Steven Tyler and Ted Nugent and Elvis Presley and Dennis Wilson and Jimmy Page and Robert Plant and Rod Stewart and Iggy Pop have all had pretty confirmed dalliances. Bill Wyman. Confirmed dalliances with like 13, 14-year-old girls and such like that.
Yeah, I remember Bill Wyman. You do sound like yourself now. I don't know if you changed mid thing, then mid sentence, but you do sound like yourself now. Oh well, it's been a brilliant show. We've come to right at the very end. Thank you very much for coming along, Neil, and being my guest this evening. It's been absolutely superb. Anything you want to get off your chest before we depart?
No, not really. Just thank you very much for having me on. It's always a pleasure. And sorry, I hope you don't think I was angry or anything with you. I just happen to have a different opinion.
Listen, mate. Listen, I absolutely love it. When somebody disagrees with me, and I've got a disagreement with it, I absolutely love it because we can have a proper fucking debate. We don't have to fall out like a pair of fannies, and we can just, debate it properly like grown-ups should do.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely fantastic. Well, yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much, Neil Sanders, for being my guest tonight. Thank you very much to Andy Young as well, who's been producing for me. Next week on Monday, we're going to have Dave Witcher. So Paul Webster's going to be co-hosting with me. So he's probably going to be talking about the bills of exchange for about 2 hours. But Dave Witcher will be on and somebody from the Dragons as well. And I've got a little bit of a surprise. I'm hoping it's going to be a surprise, a bit of an exclusive coming up next Tuesday. I'm going to keep it under wraps. Not even Andy knows about this, but I'm hoping that it's going to be a big thing for next Tuesday night. So whatever you do, keep listening to Raconteurs News. Go to raconteursnews.com. I'm at Beckham Coverup on Twitter and Alter Edge Media on YouTube as well, so you can find that there. raconteursnews.com, at Raconteurs News on Twitter for us. We'll see you next week. Thank you very much for listening this evening. I really, really do love you, including you, Super Leads. Take it easy. Ta-ra a bit. Bye.
Get the wiggies cause I'm off to the hole in the road. I'm wagging off school and I'm off to the city, watching telly all night and I'm not looking pretty. See, I got this job downtown, selling knocked off ladies watches for £1. For a really dodgy man that I met in a dodgy cafe. You know, he said to me, the girl who sold these yesterday wasn't selling very carefully. Police came along and took her and all my watches away. So if you see some coppers, you grab my stuff and leg it, boy, right away. I'll be in the cafe. I'm just a boy from Sheffield, making his way. a few hours and I haven't sold enough for my bus fare home. Street selling's pretty tough, so I turn on the charm for the lunchtime rush. With a smile and a wiggle on my schoolboy touch. So the charm is working in the underground. There's a crowd of men and women gather round, and the watches they are going, the money is a flowing. Think I'll take a little extra, stick it in my pocket, spend you later. I'm just a boy from Sheffield, making his way through life. I'm just a boy from Sheffield, making his way. I'm just a boy from Sheffield, making his way through life. I'm just a boy from Sheffield, making his way. I haven't sold a watch for an hour and I'm dying for a slash. I've had enough of this, so I'm off for a piss. Then a quick walk back round to the cafe. Sitting at his table drinking tea, looks at me suspiciously. Then with a glance at the watch he says, how did you do? He paid me a couple of quid, then he said, would you like to come and work another day? I said I'd come back down on Friday, and to that he said okay. So with £2 in my pocket and another 5 in my shoe, I nipped down to Castle Market, where a man who looks like Leo Sayer is selling pots with cockles and prawns. You make me feel like dancing. Then off back to dinner on the Wiggers and then home. I'm just a boy from Sheffield, making his way